It was always Sixers in 6 until it wasn't. The New York Knicks just grabbed a stranglehold of this series, taking a 3-1 advantage and taking down the Sixers in about as frustrating a way as possible. It was a game that encapsulates a great deal of this era of Sixers basketball, in which it was there for the taking. It was a winnable game, and the Sixers just did not do enough to make sure that that was the case. To dive into it specifically, a couple things I want to highlight. The Knicks ultimately securing a 97-92 victory there. Some of the more noteworthy stats here. Number one, rebounding. The Knicks out-rebounding the Sixers 52-42, and I will be digging in on that pretty significantly. Then looking at the three-point numbers, neither of these teams shot well from the field. Neither of these teams shot well. It was a messy basketball game in which either side could have gutted this out, and that's why the Knicks ended up being the better team. That this New York Knicks team is everything these Sixers are not. They're gritty, they are tough, they are getting the 50-50 balls, they are punishing you for mistakes that you make. And then you look at the Sixers team, that they have the talent in the world. They still are the more talented team on paper than this Knicks team, but the game is not won on paper. That regardless of MVP Joel Embiid, of most improved Tyrese Maxey, of these guys who are elevating into the true superstardom conversations, it just is not translating to this team concept. And I do throw a significant portion of that on Nick Nurse here, who I'm incredibly frustrated with in a way that I did not expect to be the case. That this was a point in time in which I was optimistic about Nick Nurse, that the Sixers finally had this championship-proven leader to take their franchise with a higher X's and O's mindset and ability, guys that they simply have not had. That Nick Nurse has all of these characteristics that this team has lacked, and it looked the exact same. That coming down the stretch there, it was a whole lot of hero ball with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. There were no longer these intricate off-ball motions, these design patterns to scheme guys open and create looks without needing Joel Embiid to shoulder the team on his back. Where was it down the stretch? It wasn't on the court, I'll tell you that. And even some of the substitution things that I thought Nick Nurse could be the coach that has a game-in and game-out advantage every single matchup, every single night. And it didn't look to be the case. That there were things the Knicks threw at the Sixers team that they did not have answers for. Moves like throwing OG Anunoby on Joel Embiid. Embiid had his way with Hartenstein. Picked up 5 fouls for him in the third quarter there. But the rebounding battle is where this game was lost. And to dive into some of these specifically, in the fourth quarter alone, that the New York Knicks, through 3 quarters, exactly tied 34-34 in the rebounding battle. And in that fourth quarter, 18-8, the Sixers get out-rebounded. And even more insane is that the Knicks had a 73% offensive rebound rate in the 32 offensive possessions with Hartenstein off the floor. That's incredibly embarrassing for a roster made up of 6'1", 6'1", 6'4", 6'8", and 6'8" lineups. Now, the elephant in the room here, it is Joel Embiid. That is the guy who's the leading rebounder on this team. Now, I'm not going to be too hard on Embiid for this specific thing here. The reason for that being, for starters, he's never been an elite rebounder. That this is a guy who ends up with a ton of boards because he happens to be 7 feet tall and is obviously near the rim a ton. But he's not a guy that has the skill of being a rebounder. That is not something that I would ever throw in kind of the strengths of his game. It just is something he ends up with by default. And that's especially the case when he's playing on whatever version of that knee is, that he can barely jump and get up for some of these. And I hear you. It's obviously best case scenario if he can just go up and get some contested boards in the way that you want your big man to do. But the reality is that has not been Joel. And then when you look around him, next up in line, Tobias Harris here is a guy who's a complete version of everything that this Knicks team is, that Tobias Harris isn't. That he's never going to be the guy to get that contested, gritty matchup. And to give Tobias, I guess, a little bit of credit here, I'm really grasping at straws considering this dude's the 27th highest paid player in the NBA and taking up 28% of the Sixers salary cap right now. But it wasn't from lack of effort from him. That he tried, he competed, he brought effort, but he can never find an offensive flow, and he simply is just not the caliber or type of player the Sixers need him to be, and that's the brutal reality. If you want to take one bright side from this, is that if we are getting closer and closer to the final game of Tobias Harris in a Sixers uniform, and it very well could be on Tuesday, as the Sixers are now in the must-win or they're out conversation. Now, to bring it back to Joel Embiid, I get that he is the epicenter of things, that he is the MVP, he's the leader of this franchise, and he's the guy who has to wear the forefront of them underperforming. I still don't throw majority of the blame on his plate by any means. The bottom line is that while it was not perfect for him, they were throwing doubles, they were throwing triples, and once again, this much improved supporting cast did not look to be the much improved supporting cast. That there was no Deuce McBride ready to step in and hit a bucket. There was no Josh Hart skying and getting a winning play for the Sixers team. It was a whole lot of guys that look limited and unfortunately look like the moment might be a little too big for him. And the conversation there, I do want to bring up Tyrese Maxey here. Tyrese Maxey's amazing. He's 23 years old. He's grown his game leaps and bounds in a way that I don't think any of us thought could have been possible to this point. But we're now throwing him in some different conversations. That this is a guy who is no longer this fun up-and-coming storyline. He's a guy that the Sixers team needs to count on from a production standpoint from an every-game basis. And to take a look at the box score for each of these guys and these Sixers as a whole, once again, a 97-92 loss. Embiid ending with 27 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, shot 7 of 19 from the field. Then we got Tyrese Maxey, 23 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 for 9 from beyond the three-point arc. And then not a ton else. Kelly Oubre Jr. with 19 points. Did get the job done from a scoring standpoint there. Tobias added 10, had 8 rebounds as well. Kyle Lowry was 7. And then look at that bench unit. 6 total points. That Nico Batum with 1, I believe the only point in the first half, and then Campaign with a little bit of burst in that third quarter. Ended up with 5 points, but just not enough scoring production from the complimentary guys whatsoever. And to bring up Tyrese Maxey once again here, what the Sixers were truly missing in this game was that spark of offense that he's able to infuse in this team. That you see it throughout the year, the matchups in which he just goes on a tear, where he hits 2 quick three-pointers and a fast break layup, jumps and gives you 8 points in the span of a minute and a half. We never got that from Tyrese. That it was never that moment where he changed the game. And to swing things back a little bit to Nick Nurse here, let's talk Jalen Brunson. That I've been critical of Jalen Brunson throughout the series. I know people are running plenty with my tweet of Jalen Brunson is Trae Young with a better PR team. And by the way, for everybody running victory laps, I've seen Trae Young tear my heart out right in front of the same Sixers team. So just keep that in mind for these conversations. But when we talk about Jalen Brunson, I'm very disappointed in the way that Nick Nurse changed his mindset, that he overcorrected himself, and it very well may have cost the Sixers team this series. So when you think about those first 2 games, and of course the Sixers lost them, that they did not translate to victories here, it was clear the game plan was do not let Jalen Brunson get going, and let's dare this supporting cast to beat us. And guys like Josh Hart stepped up and shot out of their mind, but Brunson was kept under wraps. Then games 3 and 4, the adjustment goes down, where it feels like Nick Nurse took more of the mindset of Brunson's going to get his, we're not letting the other guys beat us, that they did not sag off three-point shooters as much. Brunson had more room to maestro his way and move around in that mid-range, get to his spots, and ultimately he got going, that he proved that he is capable of carrying the franchise in a way that I don't know if Nurse was daring him to do, but was clearly the route for the Knicks to get a victory, and I just did not like that overall, that I think that you stick with what was working to an extent, that despite the results, the process of getting there was absolutely clean. You were keeping their star player under wraps, and they were having guys hit big shots. So I didn't love that out of Nurse, and I know this is a little bit of like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't from a correction standpoint there. Another example that I'm going to throw criticism of for Nick Nurse in this specific game, Joel Embiid played the entire second half, all 24 minutes without coming off the floor. That is the first time in his entire NBA career that he's done that, and he's far from a 100% version of himself. And this is another damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if you take him off the floor, there is a possibility where this game gets out of control and the Sixers just out from that point. And we're having a very similar conversation up here. But the route that Nick Nurse did go is to let him soldier on. And from my eyes, he had nothing in the tank by the end of that game. And that is where I do think it is an issue. That I understand in an ideal world, he can play every minute of every game. And you see other superstars being able to up their minutes intake in a way that, unfortunately, we have to look ourselves in the eyes and say that Joel Embiid cannot do. This is a guy who's giving you everything. He's leaving it all out there. We've seen plenty from him this series, but the fact that there was a little more thrown on his plate there, I do not like, and I think it would have been more impactful to winning this game if you just give him a quick 2 to 3 minute break and then thrown him in for that final stretch. That's how I would have gone about managing it. I know, I get it. We know the results, and if it had been right, he would have looked like a genius, but I was frustrated and just don't think the calculus was correct there. When you think about the injury status, the level he was moving at, all these things, it just confused me why that was the decision. So I am frustrated, Nick Nurse. I am frustrated, Joel Embiid. I am frustrated, Tyrese Maxey. But the bottom line here, and I'm not going to make this a bright-eyed video at the end, I'm still going to bring this back down to reality, is it isn't about this year. That this is a Sixers team that when you look at the cap space, this is about figuring out which of these guys are built to actually help this team in the long term. That heading into the offseason, it will be Joel Embiid, it will be Tyrese Maxey with a blank check, and it'll be Ricky Council IV are the only guys under contract for next year. This is about moving the meter and finding that true long-term sustainable champion. Is it frustrating that the version of the Sixers team that had a puncher's chance in this series and really to make a playoff run can't do it? It absolutely is. Now, is this series over? I'm not going to say yes. Do I fully expect the Sixers to come back and win it? No, I do not. But I would like them to show a little heart here. Give me a respectable win. Make this Knicks in 6 rather than Knicks in 5, or Knicks in 7 rather than Knicks in 6 if you can push it to there. I would like to see this team not quit on themselves because we've seen them do it far too often. So to the Knicks fans out there, enjoy your victory lap in the comments. You most certainly have earned it. I will take my lumps and wear it on the chin. I still stand by that the Sixers are the more talented team in this series. And the Knicks just purely wanted it more and are taking it because of that. And that's both an indictment on the Sixers for making that happen and a testament to the Knicks for being able to produce at that level. So we will see what happens when they check ball again on Tuesday. I'm not calling the series over, but it's not a good look for the days in Philadelphia right here. So I appreciate each of you guys for tuning in. I'm going to have plenty of content coming out straight through regardless of the result here, that there is going to be a busy offseason in Philadelphia, but we might have a couple more games to win before that is the case. So make sure you're smashing that subscribe button to stay in the loop for everything. Hit that notification bell so you're not missing out. Dropping a like on this video and any comments you have so I know you're watching. And I'll be with you as long as these Sixers continue on whatever journey that this is. Appreciate you guys and talk next time.